What's up guys, we're back with another Sentinel Toys review and jumping back in relatively quickly this time to one of my favorite ongoing lines. We're taking a look at Sentinel's Ronin Warriors figures, which, I mean, these things are taking their time to come out, but honestly, they're some of my favorite toys right now. I really have a ton of fun with these, and they also like mash that nostalgia button for me as well. So what's not to love? We've got Rowan here in the same style package that we saw Ryo and Sage, but his is done up in a blue motif. So you've got some product shots of him there on the front. You've got some sort of blued out product shots of him on the side panel, and then the back of the box is more of the same, more product shots, but this time showcasing kind of how he moves, and then a bunch of the stuff he comes with as well. I really like the boxes on these. They're very uniform. They all very much fit the theme of their particular character. So they look really good, but of course, you know, I gotta take it out. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package are Rowan of the Strata, the third of 5 main Ronin warriors, and then we do know that the 6th Inferno armor is coming. We just need pre-orders to happen at some point. So we know for sure now that Sentinel is planning to give us, at the very least, the base 6 Ronin warriors that you know, basically make up the team. There's more beyond that, you know, bad guys, the black armor, but if we can just get the main team, I will be very ecstatic. It will be over the moon, and I can be quite content. This guy is one that I've really been looking forward to because while I'm not the biggest fan of bow and arrow wielding action figures, I always find it to be very, I don't know, mostly cumbersome. I love Rowan's look. His armor in particular, when he's fully armored, is just incredibly striking. So let's talk about this part first. So the unarmored, or the base form, before they actually put their armor on, to see what he can do. This guy is going to be essentially the same as Ryo and Sage, so if you've caught those reviews or if you have those figures, you basically know what to expect because they're all the same body. So you've got a head that can look up. The neck is going to move as well to help aid in a lot of this movement. He looks down. You've got really, really good tilt side to side, and then full rotation, and then again the neck will bobble around inside of that cavity up there. Arms out at the shoulder. Full rotation. You've got a really good butterfly joint there. The armor cap on the shoulder will move as well. It hinges. Bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows. Full range of motion. You've got ball hinges at the wrist, so up and down and then rotation, but move the hinge and you can get it to go in any direction. For the torso, you've got an actual diaphragm cut, so he goes backwards in conjunction with the waist, so he goes backwards a good bit, and then he goes forwards about this far. You've got really, really nice tilt though, like probably too much in many ways. And then this also allows for rotation, as well as the waist. The waist is not a huge rotation point. It gets you about that far, and then you can get him about that far with the torso. It looks kind of weird this way, but that's how far he can go. So pretty good range there. We've got legs that go essentially all the way out. They're not full splits, but they're, I mean, functionally splits. And then you've got legs that kick forward about this far. They do kick backwards slightly, probably more than you're going to need. And then we've got a thigh cut up there. You've got double jointed knees, so all the way around. And then we've got a ball peg, or ball hinge rather, at the ankle. So it allows for some rotation at the top of the ball to the bottom of the ankle. You've got hinge forward, hinge backward, and then there's a little bit of rocker that, when used in conjunction with the rotation, will allow for a little bit more range. The stirrup on the back of the foot will move as well. And then you've also got your toe articulation. So, I mean, this guy moves exceptionally well in this form. When you get him fully armored up, of course, that does change the game a bit because he's going to have just a bunch of stuff on him, really. So it does get in the way. But I'm sure there's someone out there that has, you know, 2 of each or wants to have one of them on the shelf like this. And it's important to know what they can do because at their base level, these bodies are incredibly well articulated. Like, they move very easily, they flow nicely, very agile, and just very easy to pose. Like, there's really nothing to complain about when it comes to the articulation here. Everything is really nice and tight, and he just moves well. But of course, once you get more stuff on him, it is a little bit different. In that same way, just like the articulation being the same as Ryo and Sage, the aesthetics here are basically the same. The only real difference is the color scheme and the head sculpt. So his armor is blue, so the under armor is also blue. So he's got that sort of, it's kind of like an eggshell white color for the base armor, and this is like all, this is all cast plastic basically for the most part. Like the stomach is not, but Everything else is basically cast, and I think it looks great. The white is, it's not bright, but it's not dull, so it still allows you to see a lot of the details as the light hits it, but the blue is like candy coated. So that's what I really like about these, is that especially if you were to display them like this, they still look incredibly striking. This blue has a very nice glossy finish on it, very shiny, very striking, and just the color itself is very deep and very saturated. So it's striking on its own, it looks great, but really the big thing about the base form of these figures is their head sculpt, and I think, I mean, just like with the others, they have absolutely nailed, if you want to call it a likeness or, you know, anime accuracy, I think they have absolutely nailed it here. That expression is very stoic, very much fits this character. These sort of tealy, turquoise-ish colors that we've got for the eyebrows and the eyes in particular are very clean and crisp. Eyes are nice and bright and centered. And then, I mean, really, it's the hair for me that kind of brings this guy home, because a lot of these figures, or these characters in particular, have kind of crazy anime hairstyles, and he's no different. You know, there's little tufts of hair going everywhere, and everything looks really nice. There's a little bit of shading on it just to bring some of that detail out, and frankly, the color is really striking, and that's what draws me to it, is the color itself, because it is similar but different to the rest of the figure, so it does stand out and it does kind of draw your attention. But the sculpt on it is very anime-esque, and of course, a lot of that is incredibly accurate to his design from the show. So very, very happy with this form of Rowan. I don't display them like this, but they look fantastic nonetheless. But of course, the star of the show here, undoubtedly, right, is the armored up version. And Rowan is, again, one that I really, really like. I mean, I say that like I don't like one of them. I like them all. But he in particular has a really cool set of armor, because there's a lot of asymmetrical stuff going on with him. He also has a really awesome helmet. So there are, of course, other things you can swap in and out on this guy. We'll talk about that when we get to some of the other parts and accessories that he comes with. But this is what he looks like in kind of like his base armored up version. So you've got stuff that are removed, you've got add-ons, you've got extra pieces here. It does, of course, hinder his articulation. Like, there's no way around it. It's always going to do that, because there's stuff clamped over the torso, extra pieces on the arms, extra pieces on the legs, extra pieces on the feet. New pauldrons, a huge helmet, things like that. So the head is a little bit impacted. He can't look up as much. He can look down pretty good still. Tilt's okay, and then rotation's fine. These still move. Arms are still okay. They can still rotate and all that stuff. You do lose a lot of the torso movement on these, though, because the front and the back are clipped around it. So there's still rotation, and you do have a little bit of bobble forwards and backwards, a little bit side to side, but it's nowhere near as dynamic as the base form, which, I mean, is that surprising? Probably not. The legs are pretty much unencumbered by this. The knees are still okay, and then the feet are basically the same as well. So really the area that is mostly impacted by the armor is the torso, and I think it's quite obvious why. Those diaphragm cuts and the waist swivel ball joint there are, of course, very impacted, because they're just sort of enclosed now. Pretty much if you had just something that was a singular buck type of figure is more along the lines of what you got here. It never really poses too much of an issue, no pun intended for me. You can still pose these guys really nicely, but just be aware that things are going to get in the way. It's unavoidable. It's not an excuse, but it is also just the situation that it is. Really, though, it's all about the aesthetics for this. I mean, it makes for one hell of a display piece to have these guys all armored up on your shelf, and I really cannot wait to get the entire team. So he has more of the super saturated and really glossy blue armor. There's a little bit of gray piping on this around the torso and on this particular pauldron. We've got the magnetic pieces on the legs again to help them stay in place. I would, you know, oftentimes I would think it'd be cool to actually do the armoring up on camera, but frankly, it does take a little while. It is a little bit of a process, and it's just not something that's conducive to filming. So there are some very nice instructions, and honestly, it's very straightforward. There's just a lot of work to put all this stuff together. I think the end result is very much worth it, though, because these guys just look absolutely stellar here. I couldn't be happier with the way they look as far as the finished product when their armor is on them. Rowan in particular does have some different stuff, because he's got like this backpack thing on him here. This is for, and we'll talk about it more, is for his bow. It's got this piece here that'll pop out Well, you can throw it on the ground if you want, and it allows you to put another piece on there to actually store the bow. Right now it's just sort of a backpack, but you've got like bigger feet, you've got the accentuated knee pads, we've got spiked gauntlets now. He's got, I don't know what this is, I really don't understand what the hand thing is. Maybe I just haven't really thought about it or noticed it too much, but the hands, when he's fully armored up, have this sort of cup thing. Maybe it's an archery thing that I'm not familiar with. If you know what that's supposed to be, just let me know. I'm just curious at this point. We've got the girdle pieces that sit around here, and then of course the torso. It does look fantastic with that black field, with the gray piping, the blue, and then these little hits of gold just sort of make it stand out. Not to mention the fact that we do get these two asymmetrical pauldrons that are very different from one another. So you've got this longer one with all these ridges that run down it, and then you've got his symbol over here on this side with a shorter plate system. So he is a little bit different. He is a little bit asymmetrical, which I do really like in many instances when it comes to armor, and I think it flows really nicely here. One of my favorite aspects of this guy, though, is his helmet, because, well, for one, it's humongous. Like, it's a really big helmet. Those two golden horns with the diamond are really cool. We've got separate piece. I don't know if it's easy to see in there, his hair. There's a separate piece, and the other ones have this as well, a separate piece for his hair, just to keep it as like accurate as possible, because you have to put that extra piece in there to show that his hair is sort of dangling behind. You've even got a singular piece of hair to plug inside the helmet to show this sort of tuft of hair that sits in front of his face too. So it's another one of those little details that kind of adds on to the building process, but makes him very accurate. And again, I think the sculpt here is just tremendous on this helmet, but the rest of the figure in general is incredibly well done. And again, it makes for an incredibly striking display piece. He's super saturated. Those colors are incredibly vibrant. The sculpt is just 100% on point. And I mean, frankly, he looks like he jumped right out of the screen. Now, as far as, let's say, traditional accessories goes, these guys usually don't have a ton, and ROWEN is not really any different, but you kind of have to take that within the confines of the fact that this is a full set of armor. So it's the base figure, the full set of armor that we've already talked about, which is on him now, and then all the other stuff. So to start with, we do get some extra faces, and this armor isn't just the armor. It's things like the backpack, the hair that goes inside the helmet, the little piece of hair that comes down, little things like that. But we do have some extra faces. So we've got 3. So you've got one where he's screaming. We've got one where he is looking off to his left with a bit of a smirk. And then we've got one with the faceplate, the mouth guard that they really don't use all that much in the show. Like, it's on them sometimes, but they don't usually use it consistently in battle. Then we've got some extra hands. And of course, some of these hands are already on him. So like this extra fist here on his right, the one with the weird little nub for the bow hand is already on him. So there's one. And then we've got some style pose hands. So you've just got some like open splayed hands. And we've got the hands that go with some of the actual weaponry. So we've got a hand specific for his arrow. And it's another one that has the, whatever this weird nubbin thing is that's on it. And it's got a hole in it. So there's a hole in the palm of this hand, and this arrow is notched. So you've got the feathers on the end, and this one is sort of carved up. It looks like it's broken, but it's not. It will go into the hand, and it will allow it to sit more cleanly. So it actually sort of rests inside of there, and that little cutout is for the way these fingers are posed. So you've got a gold arrow with the white feathers at the end. So of course it matches his armor. Do really like that. And then we of course get the bow that, well, goes along with the arrow, and he has a specific hand for that. I will mention I had some serious trouble getting this hand in here. I had heated up to get the fingers to come apart enough. It's actually 2 separate pieces that are glued together, so the fingers are separate from the hand. So just be careful, you might pop it apart. You'd have to glue it back together if you did that. But you've got your gold bow, and it does fold up, so it's collapsible, so you can hold it collapsed, and it also goes on his back with the usage of, again, I've already mentioned this, you pop this guy off, and you can put this guy on. This little back hook thing, and then you can put the bow on his back to store it. So you've got options when it comes to either having it in his hand or on his back if you want him in more of a vanilla pose. But I do really like this. I mean, it's really nicely sized. He does hold it really well when you get that hand in there correctly. And of course, more of that super metallic gold to match up with the little accents on his armor. So that is really it as far as the figure itself goes. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but again, you know, when you take it in the confines of having all of the armor as well, it is quite a bit. But there's one other thing too, and this is something that all of these figures come with. It's the extra body that they come with. So let's just sort of do one of these numbers and pan down here. And I'm not going to do it, but it's, you know, if you want to see it, there's plenty of other videos I've done about this, but you've got the base body for if you want the armor just on display, you can put the armor on this and have him in his base form, kind of like how they show in the anime. So you can have that sort of additional, maybe unnecessary screen accuracy, but they go the extra mile to give you stuff like this. So you can put all of that armor on him. It does have some articulation to allow you to do that, but it's really just to allow you to put it on. It's not for show, really. So that's a cool little thing. I don't really use it because I only have one and I want them armored at all times, but for the crazy person out there who has two, this is a great way to have all sorts of different display options, or just to change it up, or for photography. So overall, yeah, great figure. I'm really, really happy with this line. You know, it goes without saying that this is something that I've just been dying to finish, really, when it comes to this stuff. This line is kind of slow going, but each release has just been, you know, top-notch. Ryu was a great way to start. Sage really kind of brought the line back to life after over a year of waiting, and then Rowan is here only a few months later. So it's nice to finally sort of pick up steam a little bit as this line goes along. They are, of course, kind of ridiculously expensive. I kind of cringe every time I pay for one of these, but it's one of those kind of, I hate to use it, grail lines for me, because it's something I never really thought would be re-released again or in a different format by a different company. I didn't buy the Bandai Armor Plus, and I kind of always regretted it until these came out, and I've been exceptionally happy with these guys, and this figure is no different. So that's going to do it for this look at the Sentinel Toys Ronin Warriors Rowan of the Strata. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.